Hello, everybody. Tommy here, World at War Comics, and I have two amazing guests. First, Keith Arem. He is the president and creative director at PCB Productions, and he's here to talk about the latest Kickstarter that they are dropping for their new graphic novel. It is called Frost Road. This thing looks phenomenal. The link will be below for you to check it out. Right now, you could go in to Kickstarter, go to Frost Road using the link below, and you can hit that notify button. They will be going live in the next week, and man, we would love to have you ready and notified as soon as it goes live. My second guest is going to be Mr. Chris Yates, good friend of mine. He's the director of special projects and outreach for PCB, and he also is on this call to talk about everything that's going on around Frost Road. So you're going to want to check this out. This comic looks absolutely phenomenal. The art is incredible. Art is done by Mr. Christopher Shy. And man, wait till you see it. It is phenomenal. Nothing like it that I've seen before. I think you're going to absolutely love it. All right, without further ado, here is Keith, Chris, and I. Thanks, everybody. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to World at War Comics. I got two good friends here to talk about an amazing title coming up. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to CEO of PCB Productions, Mr. Keith Arem, and then my good friend, Mr. Chris Yates, who I talk to quite often and has been a huge help to the channel. It's finally a pleasure to meet both of you. But before we jump into everything, I would love to know, how are things going with you?
Hey man, thanks for having us. It is awesome. This is such an exciting time for us. This is like our first independent Kickstarter that we've done. We've all been part of other Kickstarters and stuff, but at PCB, this is the first time we've done it on our own. And this has been just the most amazing welcome that I can imagine. So it's been going great. It's such a great time for us.
Awesome, awesome. How about you, Chris?
Oh, I'm very excited. I mean, this is the first one we're kind of doing and jumping in with Keith, kind of head first and excited to talk about all things Frost Road and PCB and all like kind of the wonderful, community aspects and building we're doing. And it's just kind of yeah, let's just get into it, my friend.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So I always love to ask this question. I would love to know from each of you where the passion for storytelling began in your life, and was there someone like a teacher, family member, friend that was really instrumental to having that passion for storytelling?
Yeah, I got started young. I was always passionate about music and art and writing, and I love motion pictures and comics and graphic novels. And I think my it was interesting. My grandfather was actually an amazing storyteller. He and his family, his older brother had fought in World War II, and used to tell me just these stories that I was way too young to be hearing these stories, but it was this fascinating just hearing about what his brother was going through and what was happening during that time. So I always had this fascination of just like not only what he went through but just the way he told those stories. And as I got into the industry through music and starting to tell stories that way, I started to realize that I loved exploring art and writing and got into my passion with comics and graphic novels. And so it's just kind of led full circle from my grandfather telling me these stories now to me telling my kids stories. And it's just been a great journey.
Love it. I love it. How about you, Chris?
I think for me, it has to be kind of like the things, all the things outside of comics in terms of like toys, video games. Because like I remember like having action figures of TMNT or Batman, and then realizing like, oh, this is a movie, or oh, this is a comic, and then just kind of going into that thing because like I'm a '90s kid, TMNT, Batman Returns, Power Rangers, all those things where it's just like, oh, I want one, now I want two, now I want three, I want all these toys. And then it's like you go down that rabbit hole of storytelling and video games. And I was definitely buying way too many toys or video games. You know what I mean? Like you see the movie, then you play the tie in, and then you realize like the Lion King's way too hard on Sega Genesis, and you just die instantly or whatever. So I think when it comes to kind of like how the things tie everything together, like the merchandise, and that's how I kind of got into it all.
It was
Yeah.
funny when I first got into the Spawn toys when they first came out. My wife Valerie was like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "This is the most you don't realize that action figures don't look this way, honey." And she's like, "That is disgusting. That is gross." And I'm like, "I'm buying this." And so I still have all my first Spawn action figures. And it was funny because like growing up with Star Wars action figures and other things, they were great and collectible, but you never saw stuff like that. And now the level of collectibles and other things is just off the charts.
Yeah, it's incredible. And sometimes you get older and you don't grow out of it either. So Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
No
Exactly.
idea.
I gotta be quiet so my wife doesn't hear. But yeah, no, it's incredible. I love to understand where that passion from storytelling begins. And then Keith, from a PCB production standpoint, can you kind of walk through? I mean, it's amazing how diversified, as far as genres and how you tell stories, whether it's film, gaming. Can you kind of walk through the start of PCB and what is the goal and your overarching like framework for what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I mean I started in the music industry. I was with the band Biohazard and then Contagion on Capitol Records, and we were touring with, angry industrial music and doing stuff in clubs and arenas around the country. But the whole time I was playing video games, and we were, going from city to city playing Street Fighter. And here we are 30 years later, and I'm directing Street Fighter, right?
Yeah.
And getting to work with all the talent. So I really love the idea that you could tell stories on a variety of mediums, and some were easier than others, and some could tell a bit of a story in a linear way, like a movie. A game could be interactive. Virtual reality could be completely different, but a comic or a graphic novel with an artist, I could collaborate and use my background in writing and art and work with other creatives to tell these big stories that eventually could be made into games or into films or other things. So about 20 years ago, I started really moving into that. And my first book was a book that I created with Christopher Shy, which was called Ascend, and it blew up. We did it on Image Comics, and it sold out worldwide in like 4 days, and it was like the number one selling book for Image for its time before The Walking Dead came out or anything else. And it really opened my eyes because as a creator, I could realize a story and bring it out to the fans. But at the same time, I also saw that the business was a little bit kind of broken in a sense that, like, you had to solicit a book, and then it had to go through stores, and it had to go through previews, and it had to go these different things. And so as a creator, it was like you were a little disconnected from your audience. And I always felt that, like, this is a community, right? This is building a community, and your fans can give you feedback and tell you what they love about your stories. And so I started getting booths at Comic-Con at San Diego and at LA Comic-Con and all over the world, just being able to interact with the fans. And that way I can not only, sell the books directly to the fans and autograph them and then get their feedback, but then bring that feedback in, and that would inform the next story and the next story. So coming full circle now, where Kickstarter has really emerged as like the leading platform for not just crowdfunding but community building.
Yeah.
And even though I've had a great career in working in video games, and I think to this point it's something obnoxious like 700 games I've worked on. Like,
That's
I've
crazy.
directed 11 of the Call of Duty games, and Spider-Man and Titanfall and Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six and Street Fighter and Yakuza and all these great, wonderful franchises. And I get to work with amazing teams and development teams and art directors and design directors. And I'm mainly, directing the performances and the either the motion capture or the facial capture or the voiceover or doing something with the talent. But you get to see these just amazing teams all collaborating. And I wanted to be able to take a lot of that experience and bring that back with my passion with comics and graphic novels, and go to the Kickstarter community and be able to share our work that way. And so that's kind of why we decided to sort of take some of our projects that we've been working on over the years, because Frost Road is actually a film that I was initially writing several years ago. And we decided that the storyboards would make great reference for the graphic novel. So I started working with Trevor Goring back in the day on these great storyboards. And Trevor had done all the stuff for X-Men and for Watchmen, and a lot of really, really neat motion pictures. And Christopher Shy and I had a great relationship on Ascend and working on a couple projects together. So we started kind of iterating on what this would look like. My friend Yuri Lowenthal, who's a great voice actor, he's Spider-Man, and he was in my recent film Phoenix Incident. Yuri posed for a whole bunch of like photo reference for us. We have consistent lead characters, and I brought in Chris Alex and Ed Ross to come in and do these great photographs. Ed's in Full Metal Jacket. He's got like this amazing sort of persona, and be able to get these actors to come in and then have Christopher paint them and be able to put this together. And it just was this awesome journey. And we got this book together, especially during COVID. We had the whole thing finished. And I've been working on a project with one of my producing partners, Adam Lawson, and we partnered up with Wesley Snipes, and I did a book last year called The Exiled,
Yeah.
and we did it as a Kickstarter. The three of us did it together, and it just blew up and it did great. And we had a distribution deal in stores, and it was a great experience. And I was like, wow, this is a community that's completely supporting our vision and allowing us to do this. And we didn't go through a studio, and here we had a celebrity and everybody else all tied to this. And so I said, you know what? Let's take Frost Road and let's do this and let's do it right. And let's start to offer a little bit of an insight for the fans to see how we did this and what our history is in the entertainment industry and how they can be a part of it. So giving back to the community, I think the big picture will be our Kickstarter will not only be focused on this amazing story that we're doing with Frost Road, but it'll also be the building blocks of giving back to the community.
Incredible. Yeah. Chris, thank you so much for sending me some samples. The art is just so unique and amazing. Yeah, it must take forever to do that style of art that is being accomplished in there. If it's okay, maybe I'll pull up the Kickstarter so we could kind of look at the Kickstarter. You have some samples there, and then Chris, you did send me some other samples as well that I assume will be shared possibly on the Kickstarter when it goes live. But
Yep.
for fans watching, you got to check out this art. Like I don't know a whole lot about the story other than what you have on the page, but the art looks just insane, man. So let me go ahead and pull it up real quick if that's okay. And
Sure
bear with
thing.
me.
And the whole book is hand painted. It's not AI art. This is all by humans for humans. And Christopher just has this amazing, amazing painterly style. So even though we will use photo reference for our characters, it's still all hand painted. And Christopher, if you just see his work, he did stuff for Dead Space. He did stuff for Coheed and Cambria. He did a lot of conceptual work for all the Godzilla films, and he's just a remarkable, remarkable artist. And so we've just been very close friends since Ascend. And privately, we have some surprises coming up for our next book. So for fans that knew what we did with Ascend back in the day, I think we'll be very, very happy. But we just love doing this. We'll kind of work together about sort of conceptualizing what the pages need to look like, what the characters are going to do. Having Yuri and Chris and Ed and a few other actors help us to kind of get the poses right, added to the realism. But we really wanted to have this very dreamlike, sort of painterly feel to the world. And even though it still has this sort of semi-real look, it does have this very dreamlike quality to it that I really love, just getting lost in the artwork.
Yeah, I think that is such a good definition, dreamlike. Right when you said that, it triggered. I'm like, yeah, that's what I was looking for because I couldn't put a finger on this style because you don't see that kind of art that often in comic books, and I love it when I do get to see it. So I love that. Well, let's walk through the Kickstarter. Here's the front page again. Do we have a date yet that you're able to share of when it will go live?
Yeah, so the Kickstarter is going to go live on March 4th, which is next week.
Yeah.
And it should be probably around 9 a.m. Pacific time is when we'll probably open the floodgates. And it'll run for about 37 days. So I think it's going to run all the way through the first, second week of April, around April 9th, I think is when it's going to wrap. And yeah, we're going to be offering a lot of secret surprise things. We've got a lot of interesting tiers to offer along the way, and we plan to be pretty active with the community, just giving them insights about what we're going to be doing, and obviously a lot of the rewards we're going to do that as well.
That is so cool. Well, let's kind of walk through, and maybe you could, um, both of you could kind of help me walk through what we're looking at here. I mean, here's the front page. So I'm going to put the link below, make this very easy for anybody watching this to be able to go to the Kickstarter. March 4th, we go live. So that means get in there, hit that notify button. I've already done it myself where it says saved. It'll say notified. It'll be highlighted. Right when you click that, if you're already signed into Kickstarter, you're just going to get an email of when you could go back and make sure that you back. If not, they're going to ask for a couple of things of information like your email and stuff, and you'll get notified. But make sure you get over there and click that. It helps you as a creator to understand, who is going to it before it goes live. And then obviously for fans, it allows us to know right when it goes live, day one, so we could be one of the first ones to back it. But yeah, Frost Road looks phenomenal. Maybe you could walk us through this first page right here.
Absolutely. So one of the things we're most proud of is that Kickstarter has been just so supportive of us, and we've already been notified that we're one of their projects that we love. So we've got their badge proudly kind of featured on the front page, and we thank them for that. That's just a great honor. We really feel that like at coming out with a book like this, we have a great opportunity to build community, and not just for fans, but for other creators and people who want to get in the industry. So we really think that's going to be a big cornerstone of this. But the book is a genre piece. It's apocalyptic horror, psychological thriller. The story really revolves around a guy that wakes up behind the wheel of this car crash in the middle of the forest, and there's no other cars around. He's just nosedived into some tree, and he's got amnesia and doesn't know where he's at. And he's bleeding from his nose, and he thinks it's from the car crash. And he's injured, and there's a phone on the seat, and he can't get his signal. But it's not just that there's no signal, but there's a weird signal interfering with everything that's there. And so he starts making his way to the closest town to get help. And he sees these fires in the distance, and something's happening. And suddenly a large buck or an elk comes out of the woods, and it's also bleeding from its nose the same way that he is. And this thing rears up, and there's a moment between the two of them, but suddenly it just starts bashing its head into a tree and kills itself like right in front of him.
Oh,
And
wow.
so something is happening, and he doesn't know what. And as he starts making his way to this town of Frost Road, we find that the entire town has been just wiped out. It's just been devastated. And we don't know if this is a bomb, if this is a terrorist attack. We don't know what's happening, if this is a virus or a plague. But the people that he is finding have not survived. And what's ever happened, it looks like they've done it to themselves, which is horrific. And so for whatever reason, he's immune to whatever's happening, and he doesn't understand. So he finally gets to the hospital to sort of patch himself up, and he finds a woman who had spent the night, and she was in a coma overnight in the hospital, and she's woken up, and she's in the same boat as him. She doesn't know what's going on. Everyone else around them is dead, and the two of them are a little suspicious of each other because they're both survivors, and they seem to be immune, but they kind of have a secret past that they don't really want to share. So instantly it sets off the story as being sort of no one can trust each other. But as they do find survivors, the survivors are not immune to what's going on. And it seems like every hour there's some kind of wave or something that's rippling through this town, and they can't see it and they can't hear it, and they can't smell it, but they can definitely feel it. And whatever this is, when this wave goes off, the survivors start to just rip themselves apart. And it's like trying to pull it out of their heads. And so they can't leave these poor people to die. So they basically shackle them and try to take them out of Frost Road. And so the story is really kind of a zombie movie in reverse, if you think about it. Like in the sense, instead of being attacked by all these kind of crazy people, they're taking these ticking time bombs and trying to get them out. And so the fact that no one trusts each other, and the survivors along the way all have their own stories. And so that was kind of the basis of this ensemble cast in this book. And it was a great experience to write it because, the whole story takes place in like one day. So it's a very contained thing in this town of Frost Road. And just to sort of have this large psychological thriller that sits in the horror, apocalyptic survival kind of space, I thought it was just great to do it as a graphic novel and hopefully as a motion picture, which is how I intended it.
That's incredible. Now, will this be like a one shot where you're getting the entire story, or are you going to have an arc over a certain amount of issues so that will tell the whole story?
So the book is 250 pages, so it's a pretty
Wow.
good sized
Yeah.
book. And I hadn't had a lot of experience in writing episodic stories, so I was pretty much accustomed to writing one-shot books. So it is a full contained story, and it does have a kind of its beginning, middle, and end to it. We did tee it up in a sense where it does have a very satisfying ending, but you could continue the story, and it does leave it kind of on an open ending, not to give a spoiler. But I really wanted to have a satisfying ending and just have it so if it didn't continue, then you were really content with where the story went. And I'm sure in the Hollywood of it all, everyone's going to find a way to sequel things and do things out. But we're not really the kind of people that want to kind of milk the franchise if it doesn't warrant it. So having a 250 page book was a pretty big endeavor for us, and it took us a number of years to get it finished and finalized. So I'd love to do a follow-up to this one in the future, but I have a feeling that we have a couple more surprises after this that will keep people entertained.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, like I said, when you see the art, you can see why it took so long. Just the art alone. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into the production of a comic book, but the art, especially if you're hand painting every panel, my goodness, that must just take forever. Which is from a fan perspective, and the appreciation when you see this art, I think you're going to really love it.
And we've included videos where, like on YouTube, we've taken a lot of the panels. The whole book is finished, and that's the difference. I think with what we did with Exiled was that when we were first raising it, we were bringing in our artist, and we were going to be doing this over a year and a half and having the whole book finished. This one we've been working on for years, and the book is finished. So the Kickstarter is actually more for us to do fulfillment and shipping and getting the book into printing as opposed to finishing the book. So we really didn't want people to worry about when they're going to get the book and how long it's going to take to fulfill. We intend to have the book shipping at San Diego Comic-Con of this year. So in the next 5 months, it'll be out. People have it, and it's this deluxe version of the book that you won't be able to get in stores. It'll be this very special version, not just in hardcover, but we're doing this acrylic slipcover case for it that'll look like frosted glass over the top of it. You can see the book through the glass, through the acrylic plastic. So it's a really neat design, and just wanted something that was very much a coffee table book because the artwork is so impressive, and it's the kind of book that you would want out on your coffee table, not just on your shelf. So every page is, handcrafted and painted, but the construction of the book is great, and we just didn't want fans just waiting for this thing. So the idea is that we'll ship them out worldwide, at the same time that we're going to be doing a large appearance at San Diego Comic-Con, so people can come and meet us in person and pick up their books, but then we'll ship them out at the same time.
That is so cool. It looks amazing. Again, you, Christopher Shy, um, start to get into, I assume this is the cover right here.
That's going to be the cover. Uh-huh. We have a really neat just cover page for this, and then our interior page is just as beautiful. Every page is this level of detail. And actually, what you're about to see is another interior page coming up, and that's sort of the level of the book. Every panel, we did these custom borders. So instead of just like a square comic book panel, we actually did a hand painting on every single border that's there. We did all these unique fonts. I'm not a big fan of text bubbles for my stuff. I just felt they kind of sits on top of the artwork too much for the kind of style that we're doing. So we have this kind of scratchy, kind of handwritten text for the dialogue, which we don't want to make confusing for the readers, but at the same time, it adds to the realism and the cinematic kind of value of the story. So it's just kind of a style that Christopher and I have been doing that we really like a lot. And then we incorporated a lot of the sound effects and other things. Sound plays a huge character in the story, especially these waves that they can't hear or see. And that was a big part of the story for me because growing up in the sound side of things in the music space, that I was amazed that sound could be used as a weapon. And we use sound for so many different things for communication and other elements. But I was really amazed about what was happening with these beachings all over the world. There were whale and dolphin beachings where you saw these pods of animals that were just killing themselves all over, and I was really starting to dig into what was causing these things. And it turned out that they were very close to military operations at the same time in North Carolina and down in the Bahamas. There were all these big reported cases where you have a pod of all these like either dolphins or whales that were trying to get away from a signal. And
Oh,
it turns out that that was in close proximity to military testing that was going on, and our ears are very sensitive to different frequencies, and we hear both in amplitude, which is volume, and frequency, which is pitch. And humans can hear within a certain frequency range, but animals like dogs or horses or whales can hear in different frequency ranges, but they're also very sensitive in terms of how loud they are. So there's sort of an old story, and I had a teacher who worked for the CIA and used to talk to us about the brown note. And it was this note, this sound that was too low for the human ear to hear, but it was so loud that it could rupture your eardrums, but you couldn't hear it. and that was the brown note. And the reason it called the brown note is because it would cause you to soil yourself. And that was something that they were testing with in the military, that was terrifying to me. And so I kind of took this concept of what was happening to these poor whales and what this sort of signal could be and brought that into a human level. And that's sort of the underlying basis of what's going on here, not to give away any spoilers, but sound is a huge, huge element of what's going on in the story. And you'll see throughout this, you'll see these waveforms and these sort of distorted waves, and that's kind of what they're experiencing. And trying to visualize that in a graphic novel was kind of an interesting challenge.
Wow. So as you're reading this, you might want to have an extra set of clothes. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely not an included soundtrack, that's for sure. That would be
Yeah, could be underwear, one of the rewards on the Kickstarter or something, right?
great.
I mean, I love actually the lettering because it's hand painted, because the art is so unique. A bubble would like take away from what has been done, and like you said, it is very cinematic and it looks amazing. That's why I was talking to Chris earlier, and he sent this over as samples. I almost was going to reach back out to you, Chris, and just say, "Holy crap, man! This is like next level." I don't know what your feeling was, Chris, when you saw it, but it's insane, man.
I mean, it's obviously it's something completely unique and different, right? Like it's not. I know some people say photorealism could be hard to do in comics, but when you look at Christopher's work and how like his level to detail and just the layering he does is so uniquely himself, like you just don't see it. So I think it's definitely something where it, as we said earlier, is dreamlike in this very kind of like chaotic, horrific way. So yeah, I thought it was beautiful the moment Keith shared it with me.
Yeah, no, I am digging it so much, digging it so much. So
And then
can
for the first
oh please
200 backers,
please keep.
yeah, no, for the first 200 backers, we're going to do this early bird bonus. So what we want to do, kind of to tee up what we're going to be doing with the later sort of tiers, is we want people to see kind of how we do this, right? And so not only we're going to have a special print from the book, but we have Trevor Goring's storyboard, so we're going to have one of those that he'll put together for us, and then also some of the script pages so people can see the script. So the first 48 hours with those first 200 backers, we'll get some of these extra just bonus materials for people that are not just collectors, but just kind of seeing what our creative process is.
That's so cool. You know, when you were talking about the sound frequency, it's amazing where stories can get their beginning. And I don't know, just because of you being in the industry as long as you have, Keith, and accomplished what you have, can you kind of talk about, as a creator, are you constantly looking for things like that that could be like, how do you turn that on and turn it off? Like to be able to read something like that, and then all of a sudden we have Frost Road, right? Like, how often does that happen? And are there like tricks to the trade to cause you to notice those things and to understand how to develop them into stories?
That is probably the one thing that my wife wishes I could turn off, because I would be in the middle of a cruise ship, vacationing with the family, and suddenly you're like, I have a great idea. And so yeah, for me, everything is inspiration, and I love the what if of the world. The idea that something is based in reality, that it's actually real, and you just say what if. That's it. And so I used to love things like the X-Files, where everything was steeped in actual real reality. Everything was there. The science was real, everything was there, but then they would just take this kind of what if tangent and saying, well, what if this actually happened? And so for me, I'm just fascinated by everything, by science, by medicine, by history, by so many different things. And so by combining, I think, the realism of what people are already familiar with this what if concept, is such a great way to proceed. And so each of the stories that I'm doing, all of my original books, all the films I'm doing, kind of take that same idea, even though they're very genre based and they're different. Ascend was angels and demons fighting in the Purgatory Wars, and well, you've got Dead Speed, which was zombies and fast cars, and very much a Mad Max 28 Days Later kind of thing. And for Frost, this brought together so much of my education and as an audio engineer and from the sound perspective, but also my love of horror films and zombie movies and other things. So I think as a creative, you're constantly um, not so much looking for inspiration, but trying to keep the inspiration at bay because everything around you is just sort of like such a great idea and it's fun. And I think there's too many stories to tell. And I think that's why we're starting to go on this journey to start getting things out ourselves because Hollywood and the industry doesn't move at the same pace as as a creator does.
Yeah, yeah. And then with all these ideas that are always coming, is there like a trick of the trade to know which ones that you should spend more time on, or is it just the sense that you have? Like, how do you decide I'm going to really run with this one because the legs are there to do it, right?
Yeah, everything takes time, right? And artwork takes time, writing takes time, creative takes time, everything in every industry. And whether you're working in film or television or animation or comics or video games or VR or whatever the platform is, each thing has its own sort of cycle of how much it takes. And as a result, when you're creative, and I'm kind of split between the creative side and the technical side. So even though I'm a creator and a writer and a director, I'm also an engineer and creating pipelines and working in the game industry to sort of facilitate these high-end performance capture sessions and how we're going to work in our industry, and also working with unions and contracts and good, equitable contracts for our actors and for people working in the industry. So you're constantly balancing both sides of your brain between the creative side and the technical side. And I think the challenge is that you sometimes there's the low-hanging fruit, like you have something and it's just a natural thing where in society certain things are popular and people want you to do other things. And there's other things that are passion projects that you just love to do, and maybe no one understands it yet, or there's nothing out on the market that's even similar to it, but you just have a passion for it. And it's kind of a crude analogy, but it's kind of like picking between your children. Like, what would you go with first? And you're like, I love all my children, the same way in different ways, and I love them in different ways. So it's not that you love one project more than the other. It's that sometimes it's the right time to bring it to the market, and sometimes what you have is the best approach for the resources you have at the moment. A film like this that I originally wrote was not ready when I originally wrote it. It just the industry was down. We had a fire that had wiped us out, and for everything that was going on in life, I wasn't able to bring the story out. And meanwhile, I did another motion picture. I did another few hundred games, so it was a better time to work on other projects. And then sometimes your passion projects, you have to just find, the right conditions to be able to put that together. And so I think what's happening now is that coming out of COVID, we've watched so many movies, we've played so many video games, we've read so many books, and it's demonstrated that there's a passion and a love of the fans, and I think our viewership and people wanting new content is at an all-time high. Like I've never seen the demand as high as it is now. At the same time, between the strikes and the industry and where things are at, there's less content being made right now than I've ever seen ever, especially in Hollywood. And so I think as a storyteller, it's an amazing time because now we can just go out and start taking all these stories and start sharing them and telling them in a variety of different ways. It's not like you're just stuck having to tell a movie or having to tell a TV show or, whatever that format's at. Independent games are opening up a whole new way for creators to tell their stories. Comics and graphic novels through Kickstarter and a variety of different platforms. I'm working on a new digital platform that we'll be announcing next year for creators to also work on comics and digital platforms. So I think that it's such an amazing time for people just to like be telling these stories and finding their way. And that can be through music, that could be through YouTube, that could be through all of these different mobile platforms that are coming up. And I think once you have the content that's there, Don't be precious about it. Get it out there and just keep iterating. Some people want to hold on to it forever and they don't want to share it until it's just perfect. And it definitely has to be commercially viable. But I think so many people are terrified to release their stuff because they see the competition and they just don't want to get out there, and that keeps them from ever following their passion.
Yeah. Just from a business perspective, can you talk about the importance of diversification? Because when I look at PCB in general, there's not one thing that you're doing. And when we do go through a devastating experience like a COVID, where it does make major shifts within entertainment in general, having all these different avenues, if one slows down, it allows you, right? Can you kind of talk about how important that is? And I assume this has been on purpose.
100%. I mean, it's funny that like, they treat a lot of people for ADD these days with medication and other things, and now growing up and realizing, never being diagnosed, but realizing that that's a feature, not a bug. Like that's part of my life, right? And the idea that you can do multiple things and jump around, but also do them all well. Like that's the idea. Is that to me, like to be high functioning ADD is so important because you have to be able to focus in the moment. You have to be here. You have to be present. You have to be part of what you're working on. But at the same time, like we talked about earlier, things take a tremendous amount of time. And it's not just that, but things happen, right? You get unfortunately, you have things with politics, and you have things with pandemics, and you have things with the economy, and you have things like we had a fire. And if you put all of your eggs in one basket, I think that while it's great to focus on one thing and be able to be, a master craftsman or tradesperson of one thing, I think it's really important just holistically to be diversified in a lot of different things that hopefully can result in different income streams for your business, right? Because then it's not just about the money. I mean, obviously you need to support your family, you need to support yourself, you need to be able to support your business, and it is a business, and you have to always remember that. But if you're not passionate about what you love to do, then it's hard to sustain that, because if that industry changes for whatever reason, there's a layoff or there's something out of your control, now you've lost your income stream and you weren't passionate about what you were doing. So then you were just sort of in a cycle of just being employed by somebody else. So I kind of feel that like the more you diversify your interests into things that you love and find different income streams of things that you can do. And whether, and me, I'm a creative person, right? So I started with music, but I got into writing, I got into directing. When we had a fire here, I lost everything. I lost all my music, all my synthesizers. I lost 1,000 masters, about 48,000 sound samples. I had been recording all over the world for 20 years. And the fire just wiped us out. It was in our music vault and it just completely wiped us out.
Wow.
And everyone was like, what are you going to do? You lost 20 years of all your work. And I'm like, yeah, but it's in my head. Like I created it. It was just stuff. It was just work. I'm still okay. My family's okay. And I'm just going to go back and start creating. And that pushed me maybe more into directing and doing other things until I could rebuild all of my creative materials and my studios. But at the same time, it showed me that what I was creating was based on me and not based on someone else's vision or someone else's thing. And so I feel that like a lot of us, rightfully need to take work to pay the bills and support ourselves, but also find time to be invested in what we're really excited to do and what we would do for free, right? And not because we want to be doing it for free, but that just means that you genuinely love what you do. And if you love what you do, and then you can find a way to monetize it, then you're working for yourself and you're doing what you would do, and it doesn't feel like work. And that's what I found is like with comics and with all my original projects, while I still love working on all these great video games and franchises, and people love going to somebody who loves what they do anyway, right? That's why they hire you, because if you're a passionate person about your work, then they want to hire passionate people because they're good at what they do. But as a contractor, you're always at arm's length. You're not participating, you're not getting royalties, you're not getting residuals. So it's hard beyond the job to then continue to make money. You just go from job to job and you become a gig worker. And that's been a big problem in Hollywood, is that a lot of these great go-to guys just get hired for a job and then they go into the next one and go job to job to job. So we have these great resumes, but at the same time, there's not a lot that we call our own because we were just part of a great machine. And So it's not really for the ego of it. And I know that there's some people who do things for different reasons. For me, my passion is I can't turn my brain off, as my wife can attest, and as I was telling you earlier. And so I need an outlet to be creative. And sometimes that's music, and sometimes that's a book, and sometimes that's a film, and sometimes that's a game. And as long as it's great, compelling stories, and there's audiences that will go along with us, and they love those stories, and they kind of believe in that vision, I can bring together all of my skills in all of those different trades and bring them together. And I think that's maybe what makes me a little bit different than some other creators because I just commercially work in all of those different verticals. Um, but at the same time, I love collaborating with other artists and other creators and seeing their work and helping them achieve their dreams and goals. And so my hope for PCB over the next 10 years is to not only get all these ideas out of my head, but also help our team and our other creators, achieve their visions. So, and I think that's what Kickstarter is going to really help us achieve on a much larger scale is to support that community. And then as we're successful, we give back into that community.
Incredible. I mean, I love that. I love that. I think that's going to be very helpful for a lot of creators, Keith. I appreciate you sharing that. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if it's okay, I'll stop share. Is it okay if I share some of the stuff, Chris, that you had sent over?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let me, I have it pulled up right here. Bear with me as I get it going here. But man, incredible. I think you just got to look at the artwork right in your face here. So I'm gonna pull it up real quick. Bear with me. Everyone's seeing my age right now. All right. So this page, these few pages right here, this is what
Yeah,
I was blown away when Chris, when you sent this over. I was just staring at it for a little while, but yeah, you
that's
could,
one of the opening pages.
yeah, you could see, you could like sense the chaos. It like hits you right away, which I absolutely love. And like you said, the style of the lettering is incredible. Look at that. I had to look at this twice because I didn't notice what it was at first, which I love, right? And then you start like, oh my goodness, man. The like emotion that you could that jumps right off the page is incredible.
And we animated this. And so one of the things that we're going to do, and it's one of our stretch goals, is this artwork is so cinematic
Yeah.
that we took panel by panel and we started to animate these and not like trying to make it into an animated movie, but just taking the frames, adding in mist and snow and elements that's there. And then we voiced it and we scored it, added in Foley and sound effects and voices. This is Yuri Lowenthal who's posing for this. So we had Yuri doing voices for this. And we started to turn it into an audio drama and kind of like a motion comic. And it came out so phenomenal, just phenomenal. We had it with the boards as well, just as animatics that we would do for a motion picture, but just taking this artwork and brought it to life. And so one of the things that we want to do is we want to do a stretch goal where we're partnering up with James and Chelsea from Dead Meat. And if you haven't seen Dead Meat, they are just an amazing duo on YouTube doing horror reviews and the kill count and so many other amazing things online with the horror community. And we're going to team up with Dead Meat and produce this audio drama, taking all this artwork and bringing it to life as an audio drama and a little bit of a motion comic.
And you
So
would you do that for the whole 250 pages, Keith, or
that's our goal. So it's very time consuming and expensive to get the artists and everyone to do it. So we're going to do it as a stretch goal. So if we hit our first funding goal of around 50,000, I think we're going to release the first episode. And if that does well and people see what we're seeing in it, our goal is to keep those stretch goals going and then to be able to turn this into the next generation, much beyond the book. I mean, obviously we love the book and the book is the inspiration for everything that's here, but to bring it to life and bring these actors in and bring all the sound and because, like I said, sound is such a big element of this, being able to use our studios and bring in that vision of it and bring Yuri and these other actors in. I think that's going to be such a unique stretch goal. And so that's one of the things that's very exciting about what we're going to be doing. And just working with Dead Meat, they're such an amazing, lovely uh, couple to work with. And we're excited they're going to come on board to produce with us.
That's incredible. Chris, you gonna do any voicing?
I don't know about voicing, but I definitely might contribute to some of the writing because we're trying, as Keith said, we might be expanding and doing new things. And as you know, I'm kind of a new creator in the space, and I'm trying to expand my horizons. And Keith said that could be an option, so we'll see. But I'm definitely excited to see where it all goes. I don't know. Maybe Keith, you tell me. You want to put me in a booth? Get me, get me
That's
there.
right. We'll get you into the booth and we get all of our acting done right there. We don't need Yuri right now. I think Chris is going to do all the voices right there. No, Chris is actually also an amazing writer, and his book that he's working on is equally fantastic. And one of the things I'm very excited about is to see where we're able to work with Chris on his work as well. Um, I was really, when I met him, I wasn't aware that he was actually a writer and a creator himself.
Yep.
And I met him as we were doing stuff on our last campaign on Exiled. And Chris and I kind of like realized that we both had complementary skill sets. And Chris kind of jumped on board for our director of special operations here at PCB. So not only is that helping getting my vision out, but I'm hoping that we can in turn do a favor and help him get his stuff out to the market as well.
Yeah, yeah. Me and Chris are gonna have some conversations about his own title here pretty soon. So I look forward to that.
Yes, indeed. And just to give a little more context in case anyone's knowing, because I've been rather quiet, but I know Keith is doing a great job and everything like that. But like, I used to work for Disney and I used to work for UTA, and I specialized in comic books and graphic novels and like IP adaptation and basically seeing how I can help creators turn their comics into any other type of adaptation, whether it be merchandise, television shows, films, obviously, but things like that. Of like one of the main things that I was known for was James Tynan. I found him as an assistant. I put a team around him, and we helped get his book, The Department of Truth, out there into there. And again, I don't want to speak for anybody, so but helped get anyone. Joshua Williamson, Sean Murphy, just kind of those big names, and kind of help them get their books out there. And now when I, like he said, when I met, I just had all these ideas of like, oh, we should do this and do that, and just kind of like lightning splinters out. You know how it goes when you say, turning off the brain. Mine went into like, okay, how do we market this? How do we position this? How do we bring it? And so it all comes kind of full circle. So
I could certainly see all those skill sets in you, Chris. We've been going back and forth for quite a while. You're a very well connected guy in the comic industry, I have to say. Um,
thank you.
and everybody's watching this. If you enjoyed some of my episodes, Chris has been key to helping bridge that gap between me and the creator. So, yeah, you're an amazing guy, Chris. I appreciate you, my friend.
Well, I'm going to turn it back on you and say it's fairly easy to tee it up when you run such a successfully run podcast. I mean, let's not bury it. Like, you're a creator yourself. You're on Kickstarter. You're doing the thing too. So, I mean, at the end of the day, if we can then highlight you and show the obviously it's your community, but then we can bring people from PCB to you. It's like, you don't be shy either, my friend. We want to help and learn and just return the favor. So
I appreciate that.
100%.
Well, let's check out some of the rest of this art right here. This right here, I cannot wait to get this in my hands. That's why right when I saw this art, I hit the notify button. I'm like, because I have a lot of people on that have Kickstarters. I wish I could back everything. When I win the lottery, I will. So mark my words. But this just hit me in the face as I was going through the artwork. I'm like, oh hell yeah, this is gonna be dope. I didn't even realize it was like a 250 page full on story, which I love. I'm a big fan of floppies, but in 15 minutes it's over and you gotta wait a month for the next part, which there's some excitement in that, but sometimes I just want to sit and read like at least an arc. So sometimes I won't read the comics until I get an arc and then I'll go read it because I'll forget what I read last time. So by the time I get to like the fourth issue of the arc, I've read the first three, between three and two or three times just so I can remember because I'm getting older and I think a little bit dumber. So that helps out a lot having the whole title at one time to where I could just breeze through it, and I'll stay up really late while my wife is sleeping, and I'll just go to town. And I love that little quiet time that I get to get lost in a story. So incredible, man.
And I
This,
also wanted at the beginning of the book to have very little dialogue at the very beginning, so you're kind of lost in the images and the story. And we have some narration on some of the pages just to kind of help guide a little bit of it. But it was very, very minimal at the beginning because the idea was that the imagery was going to pull you into, almost identifying with this guy who's, woken up with this amnesia. And from his perspective, you're just as disoriented as he is. So I love that about the book. I felt that, the book could breathe just on the artwork itself. And this is a smattering of different pages. This is farther into the book as we're getting in, and you'll see the color palettes change as well. Christopher really uses a really interesting blend of colors, and we go between the blues and greens and the tobaccos and the yellows and the oranges and other elements. And this is sort of like what makes his kind of style so unique.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is so unique. I'm trying to think of another title that has this style of artwork, and I'm not sure anything pops to my head. It's so unique and so amazing. I absolutely love it. Congratulations on that, by the way. It's hard to do, right? Because comics have been around for so long, and it's hard to differentiate yourself sometimes. And of course, when you told me where the base of this story came from, it's pretty unique just to start with from the storyline. So it's awesome, incredible,
And
incredible.
it's interesting too from the horror and the thriller genre because we didn't want to make something that's just like a bloody, disgusting, something that's so over the top that people have seen zombie movies and other things that's there. I felt that what's scarier is what you don't see
Yeah.
and kind of like psychological side of things and sort of bringing in the distrust and other things and just the fact that sound can be used as a character in a story. I thought that would be kind of fun, especially in comics and graphic novels. So so it was kind of fun just to dive into my history and my love of my passion of sound, and then bring that into something like this. And I think it's working.
I think it's working. I think it's working. Absolutely. Man, incredible. I'm going to have everything put below. So I'm going to make this very easy for everybody watching this. The links will be below. I know, Chris, you're always such a good help in helping me ensure that all the information is there for the fans. But yeah, the Kickstarter link will be there. Get over there, hit that notify button. This thing looks phenomenal, and I cannot wait to get it in my own hands. Keith, if you could kind of share, how do people kind of follow along all the different things that you're doing? What's the best way for people to follow you? And then, Chris, I'm going to ask the same thing of you, if that's okay.
Sure.
We've got two sites. So we've got for the game side of things, it's PCBproductions.com. And PCB is all of our studios and our projects and the stuff that we're doing on all of our game projects. And there's a link there for PCB.cc, and that's our new site that we're just rolling out for PCB Entertainment. And PCB Entertainment is all of our originals. So that's Ascend and Dead Speed and Infex and Exiled. And now with Frost Road, that's our new book. And so for people who want to follow along all of our original stuff, they'll be able to find that through PCB.cc.
And they'll be able to purchase those prior works of art that you've done.
We're going to be re-releasing a lot of those. A lot of those have sold out when we've done them originally with like Image and our other in stores. And now that we're starting this new relationship with Kickstarter and with our own sort of crowdfunding backbone, we're going to start getting those new editions out to all the fans.
That's awesome, man. Incredible. And then personally, Keith, is there somewhere people could follow you and what you're doing, or PCB on like Instagram, that type of stuff is where you should follow?
100% on Instagram. We're at PCB Productions and PCB Entertainment on Instagram and on Facebook and on X and everywhere else. So that's all there.
We'll make sure that's below too. And how about you, Chris? How can people follow you? And especially with
Yeah.
your work coming up.
Yeah, they can follow me on Instagram. It's CYG47. And then my personal website, if you want to look into it, is crushyourgoals.com. And for those who do back the Kickstarter, I'll be the one in the comment section kind of showing you where to go with updates and how to, communicate that with the fans. So I'll be in there, talking to anyone. If you have any questions, I'll be the one to answer it and kind of happy to help.
That's incredible. Is there anything that we're missing, gentlemen, that we need to talk about a little bit?
We're going to have some
Um,
Is at San Diego. So if you follow us and back the Kickstarter, so obviously that's gonna be on March 4th. The campaign wraps on April 9th. And then yeah, that third week in July, we're gonna have a special booth at San Diego Comic-Con. So definitely come down because not only is this gonna be wrapping up, but we're gonna be announcing our next round of something very exciting on that Saturday. So be sure to be there in San Diego.
And is that announcement, are you going to have a panel, Keith, for the announcement, or is it something you're just going to do like socials?
I don't know if we
No, we'll
thought about it
probably.
yet.
Yeah, we may have a panel, but it's more likely going to be something that's going to be on the floor that I think people really dig. But yeah, so we have a couple of announcements to go along with Frost and some really big things that's going to happen with us across the company, and that's going to be announced that week of San Diego Comic-Con. So July is probably going to be a very big month for PCB.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And you'll be there too, Chris, in San Diego?
Yeah, I'll be there. And I guess if there's anything else I should add is that for fans looking to have that horror fun experience, but also one of the things I want to make sure we clearly state before we hop off is
Yeah.
the level of resources and the tiers we're going to be offering. If you're looking to, get into the industry in terms of either comic books, video games, filmmaking, just you want to have that extra step, or if you're looking for that quote unquote foot in, and just having that conversation. We're hopefully going to be able to offer those tiers and make sure that at a variety of levels, if you're looking for, if like Q&As, master classes, really just want to make sure that people understand that there's a huge resource here that we want to provide for the community, because as you said, it's tough to get in and you're just like, hey, where do I even start? Hopefully we can answer some of those questions with our tiers. So please, look into it, see if there's anything there for you, and we'd love to have you come aboard.
That's
Yeah,
incredible.
having the ability to have Q&A directly with our fans and having them to be not just getting behind the scenes as collectors, but actually learning and growing and taking a master class to be able to have a portfolio review of their artwork, or from a writing perspective, how to get started, or how do you get started not only just with a Kickstarter, but just in the industry and growing your career. And we do a lot of work with actors for technical acting, for video games and other things through our classes. And we teach at USC and Cal Arts and a lot of schools all over the country. But what we wanted to do is kind of give back not only through contributions through our Kickstarter, but make these special tiers where we could actually offer an immersive class where it could be a pre-recorded or a live Q&A session, kind of like what we're doing right now, but for creators who really have their own work, who say, like, where do I go from here to there? And myself and Chris and Christopher Shy and Trevor and all of our team all have 20, 30 years of experience in what we are doing, and we're hoping that we can maybe share some of that and help with these master classes to get them to the level of what we're doing in film and games and books.
That's absolutely phenomenal. Better be careful with that. You might get inundated, my friend, which is probably a good thing, right, for the Kickstarter. But boy, I think there's a lot of people looking for that kind of support. So I think this is just a huge opportunity for a fan or a creator is to jump in on this. And one more question, if I could, you're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. Are there plans to do other cons, or are you going to focus just on San Diego at the beginning here?
Yeah, I mean, especially with our new projects that are coming up, we have kind of a whole slate, and we haven't released what we're about to do, but I think starting from July, you're going to see, especially on our next announcements, there's going to be about 8 or 9 really big shows that we're going to be doing some stuff with, and a little bit different than what you're seeing with Frost Road. Frost Road is kind of our baby toe into the Kickstarter community. What we're about to do is going to be pretty significant, so we're really excited about just how far we've already taken this and what's about to happen. So I think San Diego is going to be a great kind of way for us to tee that up and let people see what we're doing. And the fact that we're letting the fans be part of it and really interact with it and get very immersive with what we're doing. Other creators, I think, are really going to love collaborating, and other people who just appreciate not just this world, but some of the other things we're doing are going to really enjoy supporting these kind of initiatives.
That's awesome. Well, my assumption is it'll be on the website when you do come to a point where you kind of have a map of what you're going to do. They could go there to follow you and to understand where you're going to be, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be very immersed in the Kickstarter updates and community through there. And we're probably going to roll right from this one into our next announcements. So people can follow us on PCB.cc and PCB Productions, but also our Kickstarter page is going to be probably our main portal that we're going to be doing for most of our interaction.
Beautiful. Wow, Keith, Chris, I can't tell you how excited it was to be with you today, to talk about this incredible title. Everybody, get over to Kickstarter and be one of the first to hit that notify button. Frost Road, you want to get in on that first 48 hours so you kind of get the behind the scenes information, which I think as a creator is going to be very helpful to understand how you outline your story, especially in this format with the graphic novel. So get in there that first 48 hours, 200 backers. So you better get in quick because I have a feeling this is going to explode. So yeah, hit that notify button. That's the quickest way to be reminded and not forget when this thing goes live March 4th. But gentlemen, Keith, Chris, I can't tell you how much I appreciated the time with you. I hope this is not our last time. I hope we could do this again. But I'm extremely
Absolutely.
appreciative that you entrusted me with your story.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having us. It's just
Yeah,
Yeah,
such an
thanks,
honor
buddy.
to see you,
Appreciate
man.
you always.
Yeah, we
always.
love what you're doing and keep up the good fight, man, because that's just amazing. I love what you do, and we're really just excited to have you supporting us and all the fans out there. So thank you for having us on, and we'll be back as much as you'll have us.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, gentlemen, have a great rest of your week and weekend, and we will talk soon, okay?
Fantastic.
Bye,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
take care. All right.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.